Today we're discussing one of the most disturbing and underreported medical phenomena of our time, the sudden appearance of strange, rubbery, white fibrous clots inside the bodies of the deceased. Clots that veteran embalmers with decades of experience say they have never seen before the COVID era. Let's dig in. These aren't ordinary blood clots. They're described as calamari-like tough fibrous structures that don't break apart. And according to new peer-reviewed research, they're showing up in a shocking percentage of corpses years after the initial COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent vaccine rollout. Joining me to break this down is retired U.S. Air Force Major Tom Haviland, who took it upon himself to investigate this after watching the documentary Died Suddenly. Over 4 years, he's conducted multiple surveys of embalmers across English-speaking countries with high vaccination rates. His latest paper, just published in the International Journal of Innovative Research and Medical Science, lays out the data that regulators continue to ignore. Here's Tom describing what happened when a cardiologist who was removing these exact same clots from living patients dared to speak out about it.
In March of 2024, I was contacted by an endovascular specialist and cardiologist in Jacksonville, Florida. His name is Dr. Mahana Basharat, and he admitted to me that he's been removing these same white fibrous clots from living people for the last 5 years in what's called a cath lab, where he uses flexible catheters that either suck the clot out, scrape it out, or lasso it and pull it out. He actually refers to the clots as devious clots, and he sent me an email in March of 2024 that actually had a picture of a white fibrous clot. It was a deep vein thrombosis removed from a gentleman's leg. Looked like about 4 or 5 inches long. And he also showed me the angiogram, sent me the angiograms of what it looked like in the leg, and then after it was taken out of the leg. But what's interesting, Tamara, is about a month after he first made contact with me, he sent me another email that says, "Tom, I've been instructed to terminate communications immediately. Sorry for the inconvenience." So what do you think happened there? Somebody, his hospital administrator, probably got to him, right? Told him to shut up, stop talking about this, or else we'll go after your medical license. So it's a shame. That's what's happening. People are staying silent about this when they should be speaking out. Because, embalmers, there are sentinels, right? And they can be the first ones to give us an indication of what's going on inside somebody's veins and arteries, along with vascular surgeons and endovascular specialists, cardiologists. These are the only people that see what's going on inside your veins and arteries. So if they don't tell us, we, the general public, don't know.
A specialist quietly removing what he called devious clots from living patients, only to be told to be quiet or else, perfectly captures the suppression surrounding this entire issue. So let's go back to the beginning, how one movie changed everything for Tom.
I was watching that movie Died Suddenly back in the fall of 2022. And in that movie, a gentleman, Mr. Wallace Hooker, who's a embalmer from the state of Indiana, was lecturing at an Ohio Embalmers Association conference in Columbus, Ohio, and showed photographs of these unusual white fibrous clots that embalmers with 20 or 30 years of experience had never seen before until the years of COVID and the COVID vaccines. So he said in that meeting, 100 embalmers raised their hands when he asked them if they were seeing the clots too. So after I watched the movie the night it premiered in November 2022, the next day I called the Ohio Embalmers Association, which is where the convention took place, and I talked to their vice president, Mr. Woody Wilson, who said that he was seeing the white fibrous clots too. So then I got official confirmation from an officer in a state embalmer association that the 6 or 7 embalmers in that movie this was not a hoax, that this was legitimate, that they were seeing these white fibrous clots. He corroborated their story. So I decided then and there, with the help of a friend of mine, Miss Laura Kasner, to run a SurveyMonkey survey in the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand to see just how prevalent these white fibrous clots were and the timing of them as well, because I had a sneaking suspicion that the CDC and the FDA would not be looking into this issue.
From that confirmation, Tom launched surveys across the US, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, and the results are impossible to dismiss. 3 out of 4 embalmers are seeing these clots, and they're appearing in roughly 1 in 4 bodies. This new, widespread phenomenon exploded after the 2021 vaccine rollout.
Well, some embalmers would volunteer that information, and sometimes they do ask. A lot of these embalmers are also funeral directors, so they get a chance to talk to the families of the deceased. And the embalmers that I've talked to that are in that position, every time they find the white fibrous clots and do ask the family says, yes, indeed, their loved one was injected with the COVID-19 vaccine. So that's pretty strong anecdotal evidence. But by and large, most embalmers don't directly communicate with the families of deceased. They spend their time in the back room getting the body ready for a funeral viewing. So, but in the surveys we conducted, we never mentioned the words COVID or COVID vaccine in any of the questions to our 4 annual surveys that we did between 2022 through 2025. And we did that for a reason, right? We just wanted the embalmers to answer, what are you seeing? When did you see it? What percentage of your corpses have these phenomena in them? Those are the 3 main questions. And in the 4 years that we did the survey from 2022 through 2025, Tamara, we basically just established 4 key points that are in this paper that we're talking about that was just accepted and published in the International Journal of Innovative Research and Medical Science on the 1st of July. And those 4 key points are, first of all, this is a worldwide phenomenon, and embalmers in all these different countries that I mentioned are indeed seeing the white fibrous clots. It's also the majority of the embalmers that are seeing this. Of the 808 embalmers that have taken the survey over the last 4 years, 608 of them have indeed said they're seeing the white fibrous clots. So that's 75%. 3 out of every 4 embalmers said they're seeing this phenomenon. The other shocking thing is this is not rare. The embalmers are seeing these white fibrous clots in an average of 23% of their corpses. In fact, I was recently a guest speaker on the 31st of May at the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association's annual convention in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They invited me back for a 2nd year in a row. I briefed them last year. They're so concerned about this, they asked me to come back this year to talk about it again. And while I was there, I ran a survey with East Tennessee embalmers, and about 70% of them said they were seeing the white fibrous clots in 18% of their corpses in 2026. So this is still a phenomenon that's going on. And of course, the other thing is that this establishes this is a new phenomenon. Many of these embalmers have 20 or 30 years of experience, never saw this phenomenon before. Prior to COVID, they would see 2 types of clots. What's called grape jelly clots. They look like dark grape jelly. They dissolve easily in your hands. And they will also see what's called chicken fat clots. And they're small, yellowish in color, and they tear very easily. Much, much different than these large white fibrous clots, which are really tough and rubbery and hard to break. So this is absolutely a new phenomenon.
Embalmers are essentially the watchmen in this situation, seeing directly what coroners and regulators often miss, the vascular system. And what they're finding points directly at the spike protein, whether from the SARS-CoV-2 virus itself or, far more potently, from the modified RNA injections.
In the surveys, some of the embalmers said they did see the white fibrous clots in the year 2020, which is interesting, right? Because that's the year we had COVID, but no vaccines yet. But then there was an explosion of embalmers seeing this phenomenon starting in 2021 after the rollout of the vaccines, which leads us to believe that the vaccines are causing these white fibrous clots in much greater numbers than the virus can, which makes sense, right? Because the virus has to fight through your mucosal membrane to get into your bloodstream, and it's more difficult to do so, whereas the injections went directly into your muscle, were picked up very easily by the bloodstream. Those lipid nanoparticles that carry the mRNA go all over the body and set up shop and start producing the spike protein, which was only supposed to last for a couple of days to a week. And then the mRNA was supposed to go away, Tamara. But there's papers out now that have found the mRNA continuing to produce the spike protein 3 years after their last injection. So it's been a total disaster in terms of too much production of spike protein in some people who've taken the vaccines. So, but in any event, we've been in touch with a scientific team led by Mr. Greg Harrison in Sydney, Australia. He's been working with different universities labs kind of on the down low, because these university labs still want to keep their grant money. But there's been tests that have been conducted on the white fibrous clots, a whole battery of tests, including what's called inductive coupled plasma mass spectrometry testing, which tell you what elements are in the clots. Also high performance liquid chromatography, which can tell you how much fibrinogen is in the clots, as well as other substances as well. And that's what we believe is happening. The spike protein is binding with our natural blood clotting protein called fibrinogen that's in our blood plasma. And instead of converting into its normal fibrin, when you have a standard clot that you need in case you get like a cut on your arm, you don't want to bleed out to death, right? A clot is formed. That clot is easy to break down, though. We have an enzyme called plasmin, Plasmin, that breaks that clot down. But if the spike protein gets involved, it makes that fibrinogen all misfolded and twisted, Tamara. So then it becomes almost impossible to break down the clot. It becomes this rubbery polymer instead. So that's what's happening inside the body. But just recently, those white fibrous clots were looked at by the Wigner Center for Research in Physics in Hungary. And they did another test on it called Raman spectroscopy. And that actually gives a fingerprint of what's in the clots. And everything that's, all the tests, including that and another one called thioflavin T, are pointing toward the spike protein or portions of the spike protein in these white fibrous clots. So they're going to do some additional testing. There's more to follow. Like I said, all the tests that have been conducted to date are pointing the culprit right at the spike protein, regardless of whether it comes from the virus or the vaccine.
Despite this growing body of evidence, the response from the likes of the CDC, FDA, Health Canada, major universities, and top medical institutions has been total silence. It's crickets. And this paper was actually first rejected for not being novel enough.
I submitted my paper first. I submitted it to a preprints.org website, and they're supposed to accept your paper regardless of whether it's been peer reviewed or not, and just upload it on their server as a preprint, right? And then let the community take a look at it. They sent me a rejection notice. They wouldn't even upload my paper as a preprint. And they listened. So I went back and I asked, well, why did you reject my paper? Because you usually accept everybody's paper and then the scientific community can take shots at it, right? They said that the paper was not novel enough. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean this is a brand new phenomenon? These white fibrous clots have never been seen before. And they said it wasn't of a scientific significance. I'm thinking this is of tremendous significance. If these things are in 20% of the general public and in corpses, they could be causing lots of strokes and heart attacks in people. So it was bizarre and very awkward that preprints.org shot down, did not accept my preprint.
Following this suppression, Zanotto did publish the preprint, which was then picked up by the Journal of Innovative Research and Medical Science, but still it's crickets from the major players who could sound the alarm on this on a broader scale.
Every year that I've had the survey done, starting in 2022, I've sent the results immediately to the FDA, CDC, and NIH here in the United States. And in fact, just the other day, I sent another email yesterday to them again with this new paper, and another paper has been published in the same journal concerning the Raman spectroscopy on the clots as well. Still no word from them at all. And it's not just the CDC and FDA and NIH and these regulatory agencies. The Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, all these other entities show no interest whatsoever in obtaining samples of the clots. No university lab is wanting to get samples of these white fibrous clots and do their own testing on them to either confirm or refute what the scientific team that I'm in touch with has found. So it just tells you there's this tremendous blind eye to all of this. And it's really flabbergasting, isn't it? Because like you say, these organizations, especially these regulatory agencies, are supposed to be looking out for us, the public, right, in Canada and the United States, and doing what's right for us. But, Health Canada, the FDA doesn't seem to have any interest whatsoever in investigating this phenomenon. And what's interesting about that is, like I said, after I watched that movie Died Suddenly the night it premiered, I verified the very next day that this was not a hoax, that this is a phenomenon, because I had a well-respected officer, the vice president, who then became the president of the Ohio Embalmers Association, corroborating this and saying he was seeing it. And since then, by the way, I've had others as well. Mr. Chris Calvi Jr., who was the 2024-2025 president of the Pennsylvania Funeral Directors Association. He's seeing the clots. Mr. Kevin Swire, who's the current president of the Manitoba, Canada Funeral Service Association, said that he's seeing the clots. So I have well-respected men in the industry saying that they're seeing this phenomenon.
From research being censored to doctors told to stop talking and clots still happening now into 2026, Tom is calling for forensic pathologists and researchers to step up and for hearings, perhaps led by the likes of Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, to finally investigate what embalmers have been seeing for years. Because if these structures are forming in the living as well as the dead, this isn't behind us, as so many who say COVID is over, move on, would have you believe. This is a real public health concern that persists today. If you haven't already, you can check out my previous report from April of 2023 at the National Citizens Inquiry in Toronto, Ontario, where embalmer Laura Jeffrey spoke about discovering these white fibrous masses in the veins of the deceased people in her care. I also first reported on this phenomenon in December of 2022 with Canadian researcher Dr. Jessica Rose, who examined reports of plaque-like structures being removed from the veins of deceased individuals. 4 years later, questions still remain about what these structures are and what exactly causes them. And I think the time for rigorous, transparent scientific investigation is long overdue. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. To find out more on this, file and find more credible evidence supporting no more shots, head on over to nomoreshots.ca. Find more reports just like this one. All of that at nomoreshots.ca.